again has shrunk to a smaller of the Navy and his view of the Navy's role. You may recall in our most recent debate, I made the point that our Navy is now smaller than any time, well, in almost 100 years. And the President's response was, well, you know, we don't use bayonets and horses anymore. And in fact, we do use bayonets. And the modern Navy is one of the critical elements that allows us to protect sea lanes and to keep the world more free and prosperous. I believe in a modern Navy. That's why my plan is to increase the numbers of ships that we're building to maintain our strong His vision is not greatness in America's Navy or America's military. His vision is to cut our military spending by $1 trillion. By the way, $1 trillion in cuts would cost about 41,000 jobs here in Florida. And think of all the businesses that depend upon those jobs. It's extraordinary, but the President's agenda keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Not just for our military, but for Medicare, for jobs. This is not a president who has been able to stand up to the challenge of the times. This is an election about big things, about big choices. And that's why in November we're going to elect a person and a team and a people who are going to come together to bring real change and big change to America. The supporters of the presidents have this chant. They do 4 more years, 4 more years. I like what I heard a moment ago with Marco Rubio. I like 10 more days, a lot better. You know? It's 10 more days because it matters to you. This election matters to the world, it matters to your family. And I hope you understand that this is an election about very big things, like the big things that go on in your life. If you're a senior, or if you have a senior living at home with you, if that senior develops a medical condition that requires a specialist, if the president's reelected and you call the receptionist of that medical specialist and ask for an appointment, you're likely to hear the receptionist say, I'm sorry, we're not taking any more Medicare patients. Because of Obamacare, which the president has used to slash Medicare by $716 billion, some 50% of America's doctors have decided they won't take new Medicare patients. If I'm president, we're going to repeal Obamacare to the or your 50s, and these are the years when you expected to be making a very prosperous living for yourself, putting away a little for your retirement, helping perhaps a child in college. These have not been, these last 4 years, the kind of years you expected. I was on the phone with a gentleman from Waukesha, Wisconsin the other day. Got some Wisconsinites here. And he said to me that his job used to pay $25 an hour plus benefits. But the only job he's been able to get today is a job that pays $8 without benefits. People in America are having a hard time, even those that have jobs. I mentioned those 23 million that are out of work or struggling to find a good job. This is a guy who has a job. He doesn't show up in the unemployment statistics, but his life is not what he expected it to be, and that's happening all over this country. His take-home pay is down, the prices are up. This has been a hard time for the middle class. And against that, the president has no plan to get people working again. Paul Ryan and I have a 5-point plan that'll put 12 million Americans back to work. Now I know we may have some college students students in this room here today. Some good news for you. The good news is when I get elected, we're going to make sure there are good jobs waiting for you when you come out of college. And there's something else which I want you to know about. You're going to come out of school with whatever student debt you've put together, maybe 10,000 or 20,000 or more, and you know it's going to take a long time to pay the interest on that and to pay back the principal, and it's going to affect your life. But I want you to also know that over the past several years, the president has been adding to debt that you have to pay for, that you don't know about. It's about $50,000 per man, woman, and child in America. And I'm going to be long gone before it's paid back. You college kids are going to be paying the interest on that debt all your life. And that's going to make it harder and harder for you to achieve the American dream. The president's plan is to keep adding about $1 trillion more to the national debt. My plan is to say, no, we're not going to keep spending what we have not earned. We're finally get America on track to a balanced budget. Now, Paul Ryan and I have a plan to get these things done. It has 5 major parts in terms of getting this economy going again, and you've heard me talk about them before. These 5 things put in place will create 12 million jobs, get our take-home pay coming up again. Let me tell you what they are. Number 1, we're going to take full advantage of our energy: oil, coal, nuclear, renewables, gas. That's number 1. Number two, we're going to open up more trade with other nations where we can compete effectively. In Latin America, for instance, the opportunities are extraordinary. I want more trade, but when people cheat on trade, we're going to hold them accountable and stop it. We're going to make sure the training programs we have here in this country work for workers who need those programs, and we're going to fix our schools finally by doing something that's long overdue. And that is by putting our kids and their parents and the teachers first, and the teachers union is going to have to go behind. I've already mentioned the budget, but number 5 is this. I want to see us really champion small business. I want small business to grow and thrive. Now the president has a plan for small business. It's to raise their taxes. I won't raise taxes on small business, and I'll cut taxes on middle-income Americans. The president plans to smother small business with more regulations. You see, regulations dealt with by large corporations that have dozens of lawyers, and they can implement all these big regulatory changes. But small business gets crushed by these regulations, and so we're going to go through and strip out those that have been put in during the Obama years and put a stop on this regulatory creep that's killing jobs. And of course, if you really want to help small business, you got to take away that big cloud that's scaring away job creators from hiring people, and that is you got to get rid of Obamacare and we'll replace it with real. Those are the 5 things we'll do to get this economy going. But in order for those things to happen, we've got to do something that doesn't happen very often in Washington. And that is, Paul Ryan and I are going to have to do what we've done before, which is reach across the aisle. We have to build bridges to people in the other party. We have to recognize this is not a time in America for us to pull back and to divide and to demonize. It's a time in America for us to come together, to look for common ground in places where we have agreement. Paul Ryan has done that. His Medicare plan, by the way, was co-authored by the senator from Oregon, a Democrat. They came together to make sure we could save Medicare. I was elected in a state that has a few Democrats, as you may know. My legislature was 85% Democrat. And we faced a multi-billion-dollar budget shortfall. We could have just fought, but instead we came together and found places to work together. We cut spending. when I say cut spending, I don't just mean reduce the rate of growth. We actually cut spending. We brought it down, and we...
Right.
cut taxes 19 times. And we also made sure that our state was as business friendly as we could make it. And the result was we moved up 20 places in terms of the state's growth rate relative to other states. We also were able to balance our budget all 4 years. In fact, the $3 billion shortfall of our first year, what it looked like, we turned